morning. This is Cooking with Dee and the Family in the background. Today I'm going to give you some ideas of some Sunday dinner. It's about 9:45 and I'm preparing my Sunday dinner before we leave for church. Today we're going to be making a pork roast, baked chicken, sauteed collard greens with a little sprinkle of bacon, fried sweet corn, and rice. So first what we're going to do is we're going to season our pork roast, which I've already done, but I'm going to take you through the steps again. This is our pork roast that I've already seasoned. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you wash your pork roast really well. You want to make sure you wash your sink out. Make sure that you wash your sink out before you even put your pork roast into the sink. Once you've washed your sink out, put your pork roast in and then begin to season your pork roast. So I'm going to show you the seasonings that I've used to season and crust this wonderful looking pork roast. I've used a little kosher salt, a little seasonal, garlic salt, complete seasoning, some black pepper, some cumin seed, some thyme, and some rosemary. So now before I even put our pork roast into our crock pot, which we've made sure is clean as well, I put a little bit of onion in the bottom of the crock pot. We've now placed our pork roast into our crock pot, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add the rest of these onions on top of our pork roast. Just going to sprinkle it in there. Okay, so we've added that. Next, what we're going to do is, of course, we know that the pork roast will make its own juice, but we're going to add just a little bit of beef broth. Here we have 1 cup of beef broth, and we're just going to pour it in on the side. Okay, we're going to do actually 2 cups. So pour that on in the sides. Now our next step, all we have to do is cover our pork roast and put it on high, or you can put it on low depending on the time. But we're going to put this pork roast on high and we're going to put it in our crock pot, and the finished result will be a nice pork roast. And how do you know it's done? Is when it's falling apart and it's tender. So we'll be back for the finished result of our pork roast. And we're back. So now that we have our pork roast in the oven, we're going to start on our other side dishes. Here we have some shredded collard greens. Everybody likes collard greens. And we've washed our collard greens and we've drained them, making sure the water gets out. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to put them into the pan and we're going to saute them. I don't know if you've ever had sauteed collard greens, but they are great. So now, of course, you probably hear my family in the background. But now we've put about a tablespoon of grapeseed oil, or you can use olive oil, but I prefer grapeseed oil, into our pan. And we put about a half a teaspoon of minced garlic. Now, when working with garlic, you don't have to overdo it. You only need just a little bit because garlic is very overpowering. So we've turned our oven on about medium to medium high. We're going to let that warm up and we're going to let it start to sizzle. And once it starts to sizzle, we'll then add our collard greens. Now we've also added about a tablespoon of margarine or butter, whichever one you prefer, to our pan. So now we're going to put our collard greens in. We've now added our collard greens into the pan, and you're just going to kind of saute those around. Now our collard greens have sauteed down a little bit, and now we're going to add some chicken stock or chicken broth. We have here about 2 cups of chicken broth. So first we're going to add about a cup of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this simmer down. we're going to let our collard greens simmer down in that chicken broth. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our oven down, our stove down, to about medium. And we're going to just let that simmer down and cook down. What you see here is we've added some seasonings. We've added a little seasoning salt. We've added some pepper, and we've added a little garlic salt. So now we're going to mix it up. And once we've mixed it up really good, we're going to put our top on it, our lid on, and we're just going to let those simmer down and cook down. They're not going to cook all the way down because the point of sauteed collard greens is that you still have the nutrients in, so they're going to be a little crunchy, which they taste great. So now we're going to put our top on, and when we come back, we'll have our finished product. Now our collard greens are really starting to simmer down. You see the steam on them. So they still have just a little bit more to go. So while our collard greens are cooking, we're now going to start on our chicken. So we've cleaned our sink out and we've cleaned our chicken. So now we're going to season our chicken with some Montreal chicken by Grill Mates, season-all, black pepper, and complete seasoning. So I'm sure you hear my family in the background, which is okay because this is Cooking with Dee and the family in the background. So we've seasoned our chicken. And so now we're going to cover it with aluminum foil, and we're going to put it in the oven on 350 for about 30 minutes. I usually like to cook my chicken till it falls off the bone. And so usually everyone kind of knows when chicken is done. But if you do 30 minutes, you should be just fine. So cover it with aluminum foil, and in 30 minutes, we'll come back and see what we have. Our collard greens are now done. Look at that. They've sauteed down, and we took a little bacon and sprinkled on top of our bacon. So our collard greens cooked for about, I would say, roughly 40 to 45 minutes. They kind of simmered a little bit, and they're good and crunchy. So again, a tablespoon of grapeseed oil, or a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of butter or margarine. Put your collard greens into the pan with a teaspoon of garlic. Saute them around. 2 cups of chicken broth, and I also added about a half a cup to a cup of water because the broth kind of cooks out. So I put about 1.5 to a cup of water, let them simmer down, sprinkle it with bacon. They only need to cook for about 45 minutes, and that is our sauteed collard greens. Now our next project is our rice. In here you see 2 cups of chicken broth, 1 cup of water, and I've added some complete seasoning to this mixture. This is our complete seasoning. And now what we're going to do is we have our rice. We have about a cup to a cup and a half of rice in our pan. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our chicken broth mixture to our rice. As you see my husband walking away making jokes. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add our chicken broth mixture to our rice. And so once again, I measured it out, we have about 1 1/4 cups of rice. And we have 2 cups of chicken broth, 1 cup of water, and we have our complete seasoning. So we're going to add it in. So we've added in our chicken broth to our rice. And you want to make sure that it covers the rice about a half an inch to an inch above the rice. And what you're going to do now is you're going to cover it, put it in the oven on 350. And in about 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to come back and check it because it does not take long to cook. Now that our collard greens are done, our rice is in the oven. Now we're going to make our fried sweet corn. So we have a half a stick of butter or margarine. We have some frozen picked sweet corn, or you can use fresh corn off of the cob, whichever one you desire. But we have a half a stick of butter, and we put our corn into our pan. We're going to now add about a half a cup of water. We're going to add a little season all salt, black pepper, and garlic salt.